I think agencies that aren't looking into diversifying their content are running a risk.
Hey, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Content Briefly. Today is another follow-up episode. We're talking to Ryan Sargent, who we last had on about a year ago. Since then, he's changed jobs and been promoted. So as you might expect, we talk a lot about that. Ryan now oversees all content production for an agency called 10-Speed. So we talk quite a bit about his content at scale system, which levers and dials he's tweaking to make sure that they're getting the best possible content out of that system. We also hear some of Ryan's thoughts on what's happened over the last 12 months and how that's informed 10-Speed's content strategy going forward. As you might expect too, there's some diversification, different types of content. I thought it was a very helpful discussion though. I think it's pretty much the things that everybody should be thinking about, whether you're agency or in-house. So good episode. As always, I enjoyed it and I hope you do too. Before we dive in, just a quick plug for the Slack community. As a reminder, $20 a month, you do get a discount for an annual membership as well. There's 10 locked channels, a bunch of senior content marketers talking about things that you just can't Google. So if you want to check it out, superpath.co/community. Hope you enjoyed this episode. This week's episode of Content Briefly is brought to you by our friends at uSERP. uSERP is an SEO, digital PR, and link building agency. They worked with Monday.com for about 2 years, starting with over 70 articles in their first month together. They eventually grew blog traffic by over 1,500% in just the first 3 months before continuing to produce nearly 1,000 articles over the next year. It led Zoe Dayan, their content strategist at the time, to call it by far the best decision we've ever made. uSERP has collected all their knowledge and experience from working with Monday.com into 4 webinars that you can access for free. You'll learn all of the frameworks, strategies, and tactics they use to deliver these results. They cover the high-growth framework SaaS unicorns use that everyone else doesn't, the keyword research strategy to prioritize both short-term results and long-term ROI, how to specialize team roles to produce high-quality content that doesn't just convert but rank above competitors too, how to fix common operational mistakes sabotaging your growth, why most link building advice you get is wrong, and how to double down on the best high-quantity, high-quality strategies instead. Use the link in the show notes to check it out, and thanks to uSERP for their support. Hey everybody, Jimmy from Superpath here today with Ryan Sargent, back for round 2. You were episode number 8. A lot has changed since then. That was probably almost exactly a year ago, actually. You're in a new role. The world is a very different place in many ways, but from a content marketing perspective specifically. So we have a lot to discuss. But Ryan, if people missed your first episode, would you mind introducing yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, how you ended up where you are today.
Sure, I'll give the short version since episode 8 is out there for people to go catch if they want more detail. Ryan Sargent, I'm the VP of Content and Strategy at 10-Speed. We're an organic growth agency. That's a very different role than I had a year ago, first time I was on the podcast. Back then, I was leading an in-house content team for Verblio, which is also then themselves a content marketplace. So there's obviously a lot of overlap there. But moving from an in-house role to an agency role, obviously a huge change. I'm overseeing kind of multiple teams that produce deliverables at scale for lots of clients, though we do specialize in B2B SaaS. And so that's most of the work. And I originally thought I was going to be a music professor and ended up in marketing instead. And I'm very grateful. I don't miss playing jazz in wine bars, and I still get to build cool shit and send it to people and have them put money in tip jars. Yeah,
that's awesome. You still play a lot of music though, right?
I do still play music. That is a lifelong thing that will always be an important part of who I am. But I also like health benefits. So
yeah, I hear that. Just a friendly reminder, Ryan, to update your LinkedIn profile later because you have recently been promoted. Your LinkedIn says head of content, but your official title is VP of Content and Strategy. So maybe walk us through you've been at 10-Speed for 6 to 8 months, roughly, right?
Almost exactly 6 months this week.
Okay, perfect. This. Actually, maybe tell us about 10-Speed. Like, give us the overview of 10-Speed, and then could you tell us about your first 6 months? The role you were hired for, the promotion, and kind of give us the scope of what you're doing now.
So quick synopsis of 10-Speed. 10-Speed's an organic growth agency. We use that term because if you hire an SEO agency, you're not getting the content support. And if you hire a content agency, you're not going to get the SEO know-how. And we've got both. And so we're building an organic growth engine and then also adding the fuel. we're able to do kind of both sides of that. 10speed's been around for just under 4 years, founded by Nate Turner. Nate was the first marketer at Sprout Social. He's a badass, is the short version. Grew Sprout to over 100 million and did it largely with content. And he and Kevin King, the other co-founder, met at Sprout. They're great. We had kind of an instant rapport, and that's, I think, a big part of why I've felt so at home at 10speed. And I also think it's important that myself, Nate, Kevin, we all have in-house B2B content marketing backgrounds. Like what we are doing for 10speed clients is stuff that we have done as the in-house team before. So we speak the client's language in a lot of ways. And I think that's a big part of the success. 10speed's growing. We're moving and grooving. There's a lot of it that feels like a startup with some of the ambition and the growth goals. And that really appeals to me as a human being and as a marketer. So natural fit. I'd like to think that was clear from the first interview. I thought it was clear from the first interview. You'd have to ask Nate. And they originally hired me to be a head of content because it was time to level up both the production pipeline, but also the quality. And that was a big thing. Was me and Kevin were really convinced that in order to help the agency reach the next level, it was going to be very important that content quality leveled up as well. And came in, I got right to work, and everything fell into place. We made some strategic changes from everything from the brief template and what we included to set writers up for success, to client communication, to adding editing layers. It was worth the time to make sure that we were taking another pass at some stuff. Throw all that together, put it in the blender and let it cook for a little bit. And I'm really happy with how things have gone. And obviously that's been reflected in our promotion. So
cool, man. Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. I have to admit, I actually thought you were doing more growth work for 10speed and less in-house stuff. So maybe we can talk about that for a minute. Because when you're at Verblio, you're head of content, you're not working on accounts, you're working on growth for the business. Do you have agency experience in the past? And how are you finding it so far?
No. And that's, so thank you to Kevin and Nate for taking the risk on that, and giving me the first shot at the agency role. Verblio is in some ways agency adjacent. And
sure.
So it's not like I had no experience with account management or anything like that. But this is my first real full-time agency role. I'm loving it. There are some things that I think fit in my wheelhouse nicely. And shout out to Paul Zalewski for recommending that I pursue agency work. And I think a big part of that is I feel very comfortable context switching and moving from thing to thing, problem to problem at a fast pace. I think that's a key agency skill. It's helpful all over the place in content and in marketing, right? Moving from content piece to content piece, moving from strategy to execution, all that kind of stuff. But in the agency world, we will go from solving a very specific top of funnel awareness problem for a niche company that's creating a new category. And then literally the next hour of my day will be helping edit bottom of funnel content for an established brand in a larger B2B category. So being able to move quickly from use case to use case and like reset my brain that way, I think is a big part of why I've been successful.
Yeah, that's really cool. If I zoom out on my own career, I see, look at my LinkedIn profile, it's like in-house agency. And I think of it as expansion and contraction. It's like the expansion part is like, I want to, have a lot of different accounts to work with. I want to kind of absorb all that knowledge that you can only get on the agency side. And then I want to contract and then go work in-house and do something really specific for a little while. But anyways, what you just described, kind of like the juggling of the different types of problems you work on in a given day, is exactly why many agencies want to hire people like you who do have the in-house experience, because like you've experienced some of those things in a really nuanced, in-depth way, which makes it much easier when you kind of zoom out and you have a couple of these things happening that you know what to do, right? Versus if you only have agency experience. How do you really know?
And I will say, I think having the in-house experience first makes me a better agency employee. That everything from essentially providing consultancy, or advice to clients on a call, whether that's in the like sales process, the renewal process, the just a monthly update, honestly, about performance. I understand that side of the the call. Like
Yeah.
I know why they're asking the question, and I can read between the lines, right? When director of marketing gets on the phone and is like, can you just put together a report that shows the keywords we're ranking for? As an agency person who sees all kinds of SEO data day in and day out, part of me wants to say, well, it's not that simple. Like that's not actually the right measure of success. We can do so much better. The in-house part of me says, if a director of marketing is asking that, it means a CMO or a CFO asked for it.
Yeah.
The person on the phone knows that that's not the best marker of SEO success, but we need to provide that person with the tools they need to succeed. Yeah, we'll build a report. Like,
yeah,
we can do that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. What you just described, because I experienced some of this in my agency days at Animals specifically, where like if a customer asks a question, the question is really like the tip of an iceberg. And the iceberg is the context. Like there's so much happening internally that you don't necessarily get to see. But, with experience and, getting to know that customer specifically, you can kind of like start to understand or like read between the lines, you know what I mean? Which makes for much, much better relationships with customers.
And I mean, in today's B2B tech world, that extends to the personal too. I have been the person who's had colleagues get laid off. Now we've had people disappear from our shared Slack. I can put two and two together on the next call with the client. We're going to be empathetic. We know what that's like. And that in-house experience sifts through and kind of trickles down through all of the stuff that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're recording this at the end of March 2024. I would say it's been a tumultuous last 12 months in content marketing, to say the least.
I agree.
What has it been like on the agency side? I mean, I guess you've been there for 6 months. If you'd been there for 5 years, maybe you could speak to like everything that happened, before the quote unquote content recession, during, and now hopefully in the aftermath of it. But let's talk about the last 6 months, I guess. Like, do you sense that it's been different than it was? Has it been chaotic or stressful? Like, are you finding that customers are being a little bit more careful or thoughtful about the content they want to do?
Customers are definitely getting more thoughtful, more careful, bigger eye for quality, bigger eye for ROI. There's a much bigger push to show business impact. And in a content and SEO context, some of that business impact takes time. So we've had to adapt with some of our strategic presentation and prioritization to make sure that we're delivering an impact as fast as we can, even in a world like SEO where that doesn't happen overnight. And I think at the same time, while outsourced content production is maybe past its peak, there is still a need, particularly for early stage startups. I'm thinking of Series A, Series B, marketing team of 1, marketing team of 3 type folks. That's most of 10speed's clients. They need help. They need bandwidth, and that is a fundamental job to be done for clients in the B2B content space on the agency side. And so we need to both demonstrate the business results and take something off their plate. And sometimes that looks like strategy. We have clients for whom we provide strategic support and write briefs, and then they go source freelancers or they write the articles in-house. We have clients that we do everything for, top to bottom. I mean, literally the technical audit and the on-site optimization after we write the thing, and right now we're refreshing an article that we wrote 6 months ago. Like, we essentially are their content team top to bottom every step of the way. And the common thread through those use cases is we know content can provide business impact. We need to do it faster with fewer internal resources. And there's still room for agencies to provide that support.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I actually feel that I haven't really been on the agency side for a while, but I kind of suspect that agencies are well positioned right now because hiring's tough. Like, hiring is just like most companies are not hiring, or if they are, they're not certainly not hiring like they were 2 years ago. But there's been so much uncertainty around content over the last 12 months. I mean, to me, that's the biggest takeaway is like the confidence level that teams would bring to it has really changed, because it used to be like, okay, we're going to hire a team of 10, we're going to pump volume through this thing. And that really has changed over the last year or so. But as agencies, you have this grander view, which really positions you as a strategic partner. So the company can come to you and say like, okay, instead of saying we need to pump volume through this system, they can say, what should we do? What are you seeing? Do you got any ideas for us? And that's a very different conversation than like, hey, how many, units can we pump through this thing?
And that's where I am really happy and proud to be on the 10-speed team, because we aren't pumping stuff through a system or copy pasting strategy, or everything is custom built with the client in mind. And that goes as far as saying we don't need to build new content. You have an existing content program. It needs to be updated and refreshed, because here's the result of the decay audit. Like, you're losing traffic.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing.
Fix it.
Beautiful thing, really. Like when an agency can say, actually, don't do this.
And yeah. And so that kind of support, I think, is really key for agencies right now. And I think agencies are in some ways well positioned because of the hiring challenges. And I wonder if we will ever go back to the same hiring environment that we had in 2021. All that kind of stuff is cyclical. So I'm not ready to say no, we won't.
Yeah.
But like,
maybe in a decade.
That was clearly a special moment in hiring.
Sure. For sure. Yes. Our job board revenue clearly reflects the change. I posted a chart of what that looked like on LinkedIn a while ago. And it was like, you could see like the job board is just like growing. And then just like, just totally falls off a cliff. You mentioned ROI. Does content reporting fall under your purview, or is reporting a broader part of account management that content plays a role in?
So at 10-speed, the team's kind of split up between the production arm of the house, which I oversee, and the account management side of the house. Obviously, we work very closely together. The strategists who report to me every month help prepare the reports for every client. We send a detailed report. We don't mince words. If traffic was down. And it's on us to figure out why and provide the recommendation for moving forward. We're not going to like bury the graph. And that's another piece of like, I think, the in-house experience. Like, we're not coming at this from the service is its own reward kind of angle. It's like,
sure,
you've hired us to grow your business. Like, that's the only reason that we're talking to each other. So, so the reporting is kind of a shared duty, I guess, is the short answer to your question. We use agency analytics. We prepare a custom report every month for every client. When necessary, we'll build out custom reports, like a regex type approach, and like do all of the extra reporting we need to show the results, and that's tailored also to client goals. So some clients are asking us, hey, improve MQL to SQL conversion rate. I know MQL is kind of a bad word these days, but like we get a bunch of traffic already and we need it to convert better, versus we're having an awareness problem. And our reporting is geared around those goals and customized in that way.
What's the balance of numbers versus narrative?
50-50.
Cool. So like someone sits down, like obviously you have the data, probably, the data's not that hard to get. So there's obviously an important part of it, but then like someone, account manager or whoever, sits down and analyzes it and explains what's going on.
Yeah, and in fact, that you actually just hit on exactly where the transition happens. So that on the 10-speed team, the strategist pulls the data. We get stuff from GA4, Search Console, Ahrefs, all that good stuff, and then does the analysis, provides an overview, and then works with the account director one-on-one to really sculpt the narrative and present it in the most concise way. And so when I say 50-50, I'm thinking a typical monthly client report has, I don't know, a half dozen plus graphs. Each graph gets sentences of explanation.
Nice.
This isn't a slide deck with 3 graphs and a header and we're done.
Yeah, that's cool. Someone should spin up a service. I would do this for Superpath. Explain my own analytics to me. Like give me the numbers I should look at and explain what's going on, because it's pretty time consuming to like we use Fathom. It's pretty time consuming for me to go into Fathom, like pour through it, try to make sense of it. I mean, frankly, I just don't do it, or like once every 6 months, I'm like, should I look at that? Like what's
Yeah.
going on,
The other thing I'd say about ROI and the tumultuous last year of content is I'm pleased to see so many marketing teams, so many content marketers getting more creative as a result. More and more, we're building middle of funnel content, which I think was long overlooked.
That warms
Everyone
my heart.
was like,
yeah, that's so good.
yeah. And not all of our middle of funnel content is complicated either, which is the best part. Like, it turns out in some of these niche B2B tech spaces, you just need a really good competitor comparison. And you can get that thing to rank. We're continuing to find SEO is very much not dead. Indeed, there are some blue oceans out there. They're not everywhere. And it takes a special use case and whatever, but we're doing the work to identify those on behalf of clients and then filling them not with the same stuff that would have ranked in 2015, but a carefully well thought out, well researched piece of middle of funnel content that's designed to drive intent and traffic that converts, not just numbers.
Yeah. That's awesome. I really hope, and it's just so great to hear that this is happening. I really hope that the silver lining of the last 12 months is exactly what you just described, that content marketing enters this new era where creativity and differentiation are prioritized over volume, et cetera. I mean, maybe it's actually helpful to talk about why the last 12 months have been so bad. And maybe it's completely obvious, but a couple things happen. Economic conditions changed. Interest rates go up, which trickle down eventually to venture-backed SaaS companies. And then for us, the content folks specifically, ChatGPT enters the arena at this exact kind of perfect moment where every CMO is thinking about how can we save a couple bucks, or maybe even on a grander scale, thinking like, could we replace employees with this? We got to at least try because our board is killing us right now because we've never been profitable and we got to be profitable now. So then it just created these conditions where it's like everyone's in a pressure cooker all of a sudden. All of that has eased somewhat, but created a lot of stress and chaos, I guess, for a lot. Anyway, so maybe that, like I said, totally obvious, but I feel like it's worth stating.
Well, the differentiation piece, I think, is the key word in what you said there. Like, the creativity has to somehow be connected to ICP and the product, particularly in B2B. Because ultimately those things interlock with brand and authority in a way that makes the content successful, whether it's designed to drive organic search traffic or be distributed in some other way, in a newsletter, on social, on a podcast, right? So it's the creativity around differentiation and it's almost like a CX function. Like, the more content marketers think about CX, I think the better the quality becomes. And we throw around things like narrative and audience research a lot. Like, those are common things for content marketers to talk about. And I think we're finally starting to live them a little more. Right.
You had mentioned earlier that part of your job is improving content at scale, which I have done. I mean, I have participated in work like this before. It's very difficult. So, okay, you're in your control center. You have some levers and buttons and knobs to improve the quality that runs through this system. What are the levers and knobs and dials you're messing around with right now?
Are you thinking of when we're working with a client that already has a large, well-established content program, thousands of pages? Or are you thinking more just in general, the fact that 10-Speed produces hundreds of thousands of words of content a month?
The latter. I'm imagining you all are creating net new content for customers. What are the things that you're working on to improve the quality? Because you're really improving the system, which ultimately improves the quality, right?
I can just give you the exact examples.
That would be wonderful.
There's some very specific things. We adapted and changed our brief template a little bit. Writers weren't necessarily getting as much information as they could. I want to over-inform writers in a brief about things like audience, about things like client product positioning, they shouldn't have to go do a bunch of EEAT research about the client's product. We already have that information. Give it to them. They should go apply their own expertise and additional, journalistic research to the rest of the article. That's why we're hiring a good freelancer.
Yeah.
The client provided information just needs to be in the darn brief. That's a big one. We also moved one of your favorites up front. Like, what is the purpose of the piece? What is the piece's reason for being? Why are we building that? And so the writer now gets a direct line into our strategic vision. This is part of a topic cluster that this top of funnel cluster is trying to rank in this way, in this time frame. The client is connected to it in this way. Like, all of that stuff is now in the brief. And that goes a long way as well. So we're making this is a very tactical thing, right? To change, but I think that made a big difference. I mentioned we also added an editing layer that includes better fact checking. It's also just now the person doing our editorial lead, the person doing the bulk of the editing, she oversees that process. She isn't the person doing fact checking and like narrative alignment or product positioning alignment. The person who wrote the brief does that fact checking layer. So the person who wrote the brief now gets to make sure they're the ones familiar with the topic from their own research through looking at clear scope, et cetera. They're now the ones making sure the article meets that quality standard before we send it to the editor to meet writing quality standards. And it's like some checks and balances, separation of powers type stuff there. I think is really successful. The third big thing is we've expanded our onboarding. One of the things that it's a dangerous, we got to thread the needle. Agencies will often say we're spending the first 6 weeks, the first 8 weeks of our relationship just getting to know you, making sure we have all this dialed in. That's a long time to value. And
for sure,
as an in-house SaaS marketer, it's too long. Like, I want time to value to be much faster. I want a product-led growth motion for our agency. So like, we want to deliver value as fast as we can. There's also like some really important work to be done up front. So separate from the logistics kickoff, separate from the strategy presentation, we do a separate meeting with any product marketing resource at the client, on the client's team. Whether that's a dedicated product marketer, whether that's sales, CS. We have the interview that I would have my first week on the job if I were hired as the head of content at this company. Jobs to be done, product features coming out in the next 3 months, who's your favorite customer and why? All of those kinds of questions that I would advise other content marketers to ask of sales, to ask of product marketing, we go ask. And asking those things gives us a huge leg up heading into the first round of production.
Yeah, that's fantastic. If no one's coined this term, you should coin it for 10 Speed. Writer empowerment, because
writer, I like it.
Yeah, like I feel like content briefs for a while devolved into, almost like a just fill in the blank keyword, and then it's like now there's AI tools that can write a 15-page content brief in 5 seconds. It's like none of this is really helping the writer. One thing I see so often working with freelance writers, so like we run a marketplace, like we match writers with customers. And one of the things you see if the scope of the project isn't really nailed in the way that you've just described, is there's this long tail of iteration, which just everybody absolutely hates. You know what I mean? Like the writer's sick of it. The customer's like, oh, can you just do this one more thing? It's gone so far out of scope, partially because the project wasn't well thought out enough to begin with.
Yeah. And I think the thing that 10 Speed has always done well is include that subject matter expertise. So once we build the brief, before it goes to the writer, we send it back to the client with questions. We mostly do that async today. We're talking about when we need to move that to a live interview. There's a lot of opinions about that. Like, is the live interview required? We've had a lot of success with async SME communication. And I think that the key is that you're doing it. And because the person who wrote the brief has done this research, we're then able to say, here are the questions we have. Here's the next thing. Here's the thing that AI can't answer.
That's great.
Or doesn't know to include. Layer that on top of product positioning, unique point of view, all that stuff. And we end up with a really good article.
That's great. Are there any tools you're using that you're finding to be particularly helpful, from the perspective of building a better system? Not necessarily like reporting or content creation, but like as you think about the content system.
We use Asana right now, and I would go so far as to say we are Asana power users, in the sense that like we have many interlocking automations, many interlocking projects. Our operations manager has set up a really beautiful, elegant system with this, and like she's got it dialed in. In fact, she's on parental leave right now, and things are flowing totally normally without her, which is
Amazing.
A testament to her work. Also, to the dozens of looms she built, so that every time we have a question, we can just go watch a loom instead of panicking. But that project management piece is in Asana. I think there are places where Airtable could also be really successful. We keep all of we have an Airtable that's a single source of truth for all of our client requests and preferences. So everything from no Oxford commas to don't call us project management software to we capitalize this when it's referring to the product and when it's not. Like all that kind of stuff is housed in an Airtable as like a nice repository. Without that kind of tooling, though, and without those systems, none of the quality improvements would have been possible. Like you can't start talking about quality at any kind of scale until those things are flowing in a really measured way.
Absolutely. I bet a lot of people listening to this podcast are agency customers. Could you describe how to be a good content agency customer?
Oh boy. Okay. Without getting fired. So I will say this is my first agency role. So I can only really confidently speak to how to be a good 10-speed customer. And the place to start there is we want to be co-pilots is maybe not the right word, but partners. And the idea that we take that piece of it really seriously, that it is a partnership. And that means that while we are providing additional bandwidth, we need your input. Not because we need you to do the work, but because we want to make sure that there's alignment every step of the way. We want to make sure we can adjust and pivot as flexibly and as quickly as necessary if something goes wrong. So examples. We'll build out 3 months worth of roadmap. Here's all the content we want to build for you in the next 3 months. Here's why. Here's the results we expect to achieve. All that good stuff. If you have comments, give us the feedback. Don't feel like you need to rubber stamp it because you've already sent the check. Also, don't nitpick it to death. Say this topic cluster doesn't look right. There's something not quite right about it. It's using vocabulary that doesn't match our ICP, or I don't see the volume here, or our thought leadership, our point of view actually suggests that this topic cluster isn't important. Great, we'll go replace it. We want that feedback. The same thing happens then when we get the SME feedback. We built this brief. Tell us where we got it wrong. Tell us where we got it right. We want to be a partner there. We also keep track of all that, right? When you give us that feedback, we write it down. We put it in our internal Slack channels. We talk about it at meetings, and it all makes its way then all those learnings into the next iteration and into the future work.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In my agency experience, when customer relationships went bad, it was almost always because the customer, not explicitly, but would sort of say, "We gave you a bunch of money. Now impress us." Sort of like a madman type thing. And I found, it took me a while to appreciate this, that the agency customer relationship is one that needs almost constant calibration.
Yes.
And it's actually quite helpful when you, the agency, can just tell them exactly what's going to happen and what you need.
Yeah.
And don't wait, because that's what happens is if they don't know if the customer doesn't know what's going on, they feel like, where's our money going? We haven't heard anything on this project. I want this, I want that. All they really need is just expectations, and then if you deliver on those expectations, good chance everyone's going to be happy.
It's about the expectation setting. I agree. And even in the world of like B2B SaaS and enterprise level sales, agency relationships require constant care and feeding. And that's a thing that 10-speed takes very seriously, does very well. both in terms of meeting cadence and in terms of just general communication. And I think, you mentioned like they say just impress us. The other thing I've noticed is alignment about done versus perfect is often
that's a great point.
a point of friction. So finding alignment on that can also be something that's good to do early in the process.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. What's next? Like, what are things that are kind of percolating in your mind that you hope to spend the next 6 months working on?
This is actually the thing I'm most excited about. I was hoping we would get to talk about this stuff. So over the next 6 months, 10Speed's plan is to build out more and more services specifically around more different types of content. We're going to start building more different stuff for clients, which is so exciting. The blog post has had a great run, and I expect we will continue producing hundreds of thousands of words a month for clients. I can't wait to build research reports, to build more email newsletters, to build all that kind of stuff so that we can have a more fully distributed content plan, a strategy that truly has more tools at its disposal. And yeah, if you're listening to this, that stuff is probably already in motion, and we're redoing our website to accommodate it all, and
nice.
And all of that. So it's great. I got to put my product marketer hat on a little bit with it. It's like, because as the person like responsible for the deliverables in a lot of ways, I got to be the product marketer and like build a go-to-market plan and do all that kind of stuff from my past. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And my gut reaction is that sounds like exactly the right thing to do also.
Yes. I think agencies that aren't looking into diversifying their content are running a risk.
Yeah.
They're not sunk by any means. Like I said, SEO is very much not dead, but I'm really happy that we're taking that step and taking it now.
Yeah. Well, you're getting back to first principles. It would be easy to say like we are an agency that creates SEO content. It's harder to say, we're an agency that helps our customers grow their businesses, and then work backwards from that to figure out like, well, what do we need to do?
Yeah, and it's funny you used the term, right? SEO content, and somewhere along the line that also became a little bit of a bad word. And in my mind, all it means is content that's designed to drive organic search traffic and conversions. It's content that we're building for that channel. And to that end, we're starting to build more and more of what I've been calling authority content that's designed to drive traffic and conversions from other channels based on your authority, whether that looks like, quote, thought leadership or social posts or a podcast. It's fundamentally authority content, not SEO content.
Absolutely. SEO content is increasingly a tool in the toolbox, not
exactly
the whole workshop. So that's great. Well, we'll have to, so this is your second appearance. I'm going to set a reminder for us to do this hopefully like March 2025. So we can check in and like, cause I really am curious. People may notice like we're bringing on more past guests lately because I always end these episodes saying something like, oh, well, like we want to know how it goes. And now we're actually finding that out. So I hope we can have you on again so we can learn more about like how this has all evolved, how it's gone, what you've learned, all that good stuff.
I would love that. Let's book it.
Cool. Ryan, where can we send people to learn more about 10Speed and about you also?
Best places to find me are on LinkedIn. You'll know it's me because there's a fun black and white illustration, guy in glasses, and Ryan Sargent, and then or on Superpath. Send me a DM, tag me in a channel, and then 10Speed is at 10speed.io. All the usual internet stuff.
Cool. We'll link to all that stuff in show notes so people can go check it out. Ryan, thanks as always for your time, and we'll look forward to doing it again soon.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.